Amidst the market downturn, the Australian property market is set to rebound with strong price growth expected over the next decade. The Gold Coast emerging as an enticing investment destination, surpassing even Sydney in terms of potential returns. With its captivating beaches, of course, vibrant lifestyle, thriving economy, the Gold Coast can offer a prime opportunity for investors looking to capitalise on significant gains. Today, we have VentureCrowd's head of property, David Whitting, to talk about property investing on the Gold Coast. Great to have you with us. Can you talk to us a bit about the property market in Queensland?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Aaron, for being here. So, yeah, look, Queensland has obviously historically been a quite strong state for property investment. Queensland itself is a large state full of mini markets. Brisbane has historically been the bellwether for the state, being, of course, the largest city. Has the longest and most meaningful statistics due to its size and trading patterns. But of course, the Gold Coast has certainly in the past few years become very much its own market, and we have a rather good range of statistics for that market as well. Unlike, I should say, like the rest of Australia, property prices have fallen from the peaks of a couple of years ago. In the Queensland sense, it's around 12%, but after massive rises of double that easily over the COVID years.
Interesting. We think of the COVID years, particularly from us in Melbourne, and it felt like everyone was moving to Queensland as well. I'm surprised there's any property left to invest. Talk to us about the Gold Coast, though, why you think that is the area beyond, say, the Sunshine Coast. And I'm really interested in the point that we made in the opener there about how the Gold Coast could actually have better returns on an investment property than even Sydney.
Yeah, sure. Well, the land supply issues on the Gold Coast are quite chronic. Essentially, the local councils haven't released enough land to meet supply. Every single statistician you talk to talks about that issue. And what you have at the moment in terms of the supply on the Gold Coast is really the very coastal seaboard apartment market. And what we're starting to see now is that construction costs with apartments are putting, a rather massive limitation on supply. So, one of the statistics recently was that within 2 years, the supply on the Gold Coast in terms of apartments will plummet into the single-digit figures on a per annum basis in terms of supply, from approximately 40 to be delivered in the next year or two. So we're seeing enormous constraints in that, and really what it's doing is pushing up against high interstate net migration from other states, particularly Melbourne and Victoria. And
particularly this time of year as well, it's worth mentioning because it is so
cold
in the south. Yeah, talk to us though. I mean, you mentioned the urban sprawl and how that isn't really an issue for the Gold Coast. Quite the opposite, actually. It's really tightly held in there. What do we need to know about investing in the current market? Because obviously it's not just about the location and the warmth and urban sprawl, it's also about the economy as well.
Well, look, absolutely. I mean, anyone who's read the paper can make their own judgments in relation to where interest rates are going. One of the interesting things is that, of course, the environment affects variable interest rates. Variable interest rates are only a very small part of the, let's call it the mortgage market, due to the massive kind of demographic shift that is happening with the Australian boomer market, which is particularly reflected on the Gold Coast, with retirees moving up there, not to holiday, but to actually live. Many of those are buying without mortgages. Many of the others, of course, are on fixed rates still for a number of years. So it's only affecting the proportion of the population, really, that are on variable mortgages. And the Gold Coast, I think, is probably more resilient than most markets. Its first home buyer market is in the western suburban areas, but very much, high-end product is being delivered on the Gold Coast, and that is often being funded by downsizers.
Yeah, and such an interesting point you make about retirees as well. As we know, there are so many people who've chosen to retire at the moment just to get out of what has been a crazy time. We see that with the employment details as well. David, really appreciate your time with Funding Futures. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Aaron. Thank you for having me.